Hey y'all, it's Bear, and today I'm here to talk about the problems with the Indian burial ground trope. How it works with literature, how it works with film. If you're new to my channel and you're not aware, I am Indigenous, I am of Cherokee descent, I'm a reconnecting native, and I'm a huge horror fan, and I'm a huge reader. Hi, this is my booktube channel where I talk about horror and native shit, and how can I not combine the two and discuss the Indian burial ground trope? Also, be sure to check downstairs. I will be leaving links for you to go check out places where you can donate to help survivors of residential schools and missing and murdered Indigenous women. I just think it's kind of fucked up. If you're watching this video, then clearly Native rep is something that you care about, and you should not just be supporting Native people in the fictionalized sense and learning about them in the fictionalized sense. You should learn about like real shit. So I will be leaving links to real shit for you to go check out downstairs. Another thing I'm going to leave downstairs if you want to hear this discussed in further detail. This is going to be a fairly short video in the grand scheme of things. I will leave a podcast link down below. It's the Dead Meat podcast with the horror YouTuber James A. Janice and his wife that they did with Joey Clift, who is a Cowlitz comedian and writer. And they discuss a lot more in depth like the movie side of things and like real life Native issues and Native history and stuff like that. So if you want to get like real in-depth, you can go check it out downstairs. I highly recommend it. It's from 2018, but it's still fantastic. It's a great educational tool, and it's something that like I link out a lot. So what is the Indian burial ground trope? It's what it sounds like. It's often used in haunted house stories, possession stories. Ghosts of the dead natives are coming to murder everyone, or this was their sacred burial lands and you were gonna pay for being on here. Basically, it's just a lazy plot device that people use whenever they don't do enough research, and they don't want to think about things. I find that the Indian burial ground trope is a very easy way for non-native authors to explain things without explaining things. And I mean this in the sense of like, rather than thinking of an original concept for why the house is haunted, rather than thinking of something really inventive and cool that they could do as to like why this town is experiencing all of these mishaps or why people keep going missing in these woods. They like to throw the concept of like, oh, well, this is where the dead Indians live. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that like horror specifically in the past has been very white centric. And I think it's interesting that some people think that it's almost like a form of like white guilt and we're trying to like give credit to Indigenous people for being on the land first. I think that's bullshit. Joey Clift also talks about that a little bit more in the podcast if you want to go check that out. I think that's bullshit. It's done in a way that's very always poorly researched. It's always poorly researched. It's always disrespectful. I've never read anything with an Indian burial ground where it was like, you know what? That's a good one. That's a good representation of what a dead native ghost would be like. I want to talk about a few key points in this video. The first one being the lack of research that goes into Indian burial grounds and horror media. Whenever people use native tribes in media, if you're not an Indigenous person, very often it's badly researched. They'll be in like Oregon and they'll be like, this is a Cherokee burial ground. And most of the time they don't even mention the tribe either. They'll just straight up say like, oh, this is an Indian burial ground, which it's better that you're not getting the information wrong as far as like whose tribal lands this story is taking place on, right? But it's bad because it reinforces the idea that Native people are a monolith instead of like over 500 federally recognized tribes just in North America. And it also totally just disregards the fact that different tribes have different cultures, different views surrounding the dead, and therefore like have different burial customs and different like afterlife beliefs. And then some people don't even have burial grounds, and you're totally ignoring the fact that like this entire country, if we're being very technical, is a native burial ground. So it's just like a lack of research and a lack of thought put into the idea behind native burial grounds. And now we're going to move on to the next point, which is the fact that the native burial ground and like always having like an Indigenous ghost, right? It's always like the ghost of a war chief, or like she was the forgotten princess, or whatever the reason you're doing this is it's also reinforcing this weird idea that like Native people have superpowers. And it becomes a point where the word Indian, the word native, the word indigenous becomes synonymous with like mystical. Like, I, as an adult, this is something else I talk about in the podcast. I can't recommend watching that Dead Meat podcast enough because Joey Clift touches on so many things that like I have dealt with my entire life. Whenever people find out that I'm Cherokee, I have people ask me if I have magic powers, or they ask me about like spirit guides or dream journeys or whatever, you know. So there are these all these weird tropes surrounding indigenous people, and I will talk about them in other videos if you want. But to get back on topic with this, it goes into the idea that native people are mystical and magical and all-knowing. Because if you just make us ghosts, like we're poltergeists, we can just like throw your dollies around the room and break your windows and shit. You're giving us superpowers. If we as ghosts have the ability to possess like that desperate housewife, then we have superpowers. You're reinforcing the mystical native trope, and that's also a problem because like I as an adult shouldn't be asked if I can like shapeshift or teleport or summon the spirit guides or anything like that. Like, and by centering indigenous people in a white narrative to any capacity, you are 9 times out of 10 putting them in as like either a mystical thing or an educational thing. Like, we're just tools. We can't be people. Even like our dead ancestors, we're just tools. Going into one of my final points, it is the fact that in these narratives, in these films, it is always an unseen native ghost. We never have native ghosts on camera. We can't have that, because in order to do that, we have to give indigenous actors work. You'll never see the native people. You'll never see the ghosts. Is it good to have these ideas in the first place? No. But if you're gonna have them, like if you insist that like your film has to have an Indian burial ground, the very least you could do is hire some native actors so that they can get paid. And have you ever seen a native burial ground plotted movie that actually has native people in it? Have you ever seen like a flashback where the natives were burying their dead, or a native ghost coming out of the chimney to like warn the teenage girl or whatever? Have you ever seen it? Because I haven't. By only featuring us in any story as like the dead angry ghosts who are mad at white people, you're saying that we're all dead. You're implying that we are all dead, that we're all died out, that we're extinct people. And I know like adults also who assume that like all the native people are dead because they never learn about us past the fact that we helped the pilgrims grow corn. There are a couple more things that I would get into, but this video is already getting a little long, so I'm going to cut it off here. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. I hope this discussion was able to help you with some things. Maybe it taught you something. Maybe you didn't think about things that you're thinking about now in a different light. But yeah, that's all I have today. Tomorrow I will actually be posting a video where I recommend you some spooky horror, thriller, mystery novels by indigenous authors. But if you enjoyed this video, you can let me know by subscribing, hitting the bell, sharing as you see fit, leaving a like, doing all that stuff, as well as answering the comment question of the day. Comment question of the day: I want to know what your favorite native-centric horror media is. It can be a film, it can be a book, it can be a TV show, whatever. Give me like some spooky native recs, because I'm in need of them. And then if you don't have time, you don't have the spoons, you don't have an answer, you don't want to answer, let me know you made it all the way until the end of the video by leaving me an emoji, preferably a smiley face emoticon or a yellow heart. Also, like I said, please make sure you are going to check the description for the links to the charities that I have mentioned, and please just give time to go watch the podcast and go follow Joey Clift. Alright, I hope you have a wonderful whatever it is, wherever you are, and I will see you tomorrow for another spooky video. Thank you for watching. Okay.